Summary: ecosystem is a functional unit of nature which includes the following four aspects: productivity, decomposition, energy flow, and nutrient cycling. Productivity is mainly of two types: gross primary productivity and net primary productivity. Decomposition is the conversion of complex organic matter into inorganic substances, in which detritivores act on detritus in the following steps: fragmentation, leaching, catabolism, humification, and mineralization. Energy flow occurs through the successive trophic levels, which are represented by the ecological pyramids. Ecological succession is change in the composition and structure of all communities to a final equilibrium community, which is known as climax community. Ecological succession in plants is of two types: one which is known as hydrarch, which occur in the water conditions, and second is a xerarch, which occurs in dry conditions. Both hydrarch and xerarch condition lead to a final medium water condition known as the mesic condition. Nutrient cycling occurring in the ecosystem is of two types. First is the gaseous and second is the sedimentary. Gaseous cycling includes nitrogen and carbon cycle, whereas sedimentary cycle includes sulfur and phosphorus cycle. The products of the ecosystem processes are named as ecosystem services, in which soil formation accounts for the 50%, recreation and nutrient cycling account for less than 10% each, and climate regulation, habitat for life include or account for nearly 6% each. Chapter 14: Ecosystem. An ecosystem can be visualized as a functional unit of nature where living organisms interact among themselves and also with the surrounding physical environment. Ecosystem varies greatly in size, from a small pond to a large forest or a sea. Many ecologists regard the entire biosphere as a global ecosystem, as a composite of all local bioecosystems on Earth. Since this system is too much big and complex to be studied at one time, it is convenient to divide it into two basic categories, namely terrestrial and the aquatic. Forest, grassland, and desert are some examples of terrestrial ecosystem. Pond, lake, wetland, river, and estuary are some examples of aquatic ecosystems. Crop field and an aquarium may also be considered as man-made ecosystems. We will look first at the structure of the ecosystem in order to appreciate the input, that is productivity, transfer of energy, food chain, and the output, degradation and energy loss. We will also look at the relationships, cycles, chains, webs that are created as a result of these energy flows within the system and their interrelationship. Ecosystem structure and function. In chapter 13, you have looked at the various components of the environment, abiotic and biotic. You studied how the individual biotic and abiotic factors affected each other and their surrounding. Let us look at these components in a more integrated manner and see how the flow of energy takes place within these components of the ecosystem. Interaction of biotic and abiotic components result in a physical structure that is characteristic for each type of ecosystem. Identification and enumeration of plant and animal species of an ecosystem gives its species composition. Vertical distribution of different species occupying different levels is called stratification. For example, trees occupy top vertical strata or layer of a forest, shrubs the second, and herbs and grasses occupy the bottom layers. The components of the ecosystem are seen to function as a unit when you consider the following aspects. First, productivity; second, decomposition; third, energy flow; and fourth, nutrient cycling. To understand the ethos of an aquatic ecosystem, let us take a small pond as an example. This is fairly a self-sustainable unit and rather simple example that can explain even the complex interaction that exists in an aquatic ecosystem. A pond is a shallow water body in which all the above mentioned four basic components of an ecosystem are well exhibited. The abiotic component is the water with all the dissolved inorganic and organic substances and the rich soil deposit at the bottom of the pond. The solar input, the cycle of temperature, day length, and other climatic conditions regulate the function at the entire pond. The autotrophic components include the phytoplankton, some algae, and the floating, submerged, and marginal plants found at the edges. The consumers are represented by the zooplankton, the free swimming and bottom dwelling forms. The decomposers are fungi, bacteria, and flagellates, especially abundant in the bottom of the pond. This system performs all the functions of any ecosystem and of the biosphere as a whole, that is, conversion of inorganic into organic material with the help of the radiant energy of the sun by the autotrophs, consumption of the autotrophs by heterotrophs, decomposition and mineralization of the dead matter to release them back for reuse by the autotrophs. These events are repeated over and over again. There is unidirectional movement of energy towards the higher trophic levels and its dissipation and loss as heat to the environment. Productivity. A constant input of solar energy is the basic requirement for any ecosystem to function and sustain. Primary production is defined as the amount of biomass or organic matter produced per unit area over a time period by plants during photosynthesis. It is expressed in terms of weight, example gram per meter square, or energy, kilocalorie per meter square. The rate of biomass production is called productivity. It is expressed in terms of gram per meter square per year or kilocalorie per meter square per year to compare the productivity of different ecosystems. It can be divided into gross primary productivity and net primary productivity. Gross primary productivity of an ecosystem is the rate of production of organic matter during photosynthesis. A considerable amount of GPP is utilized by plants in respiration. Gross primary productivity minus respiration losses is the net primary productivity. Net primary productivity is the available biomass for the consumption to heterotrophs, herbivores, and decomposers. Secondary productivity is defined as the rate of formation of new organic matter by consumers. Primary productivity depends on the plant species inhabiting a particular area. It also depends on a variety of environmental factors, availability of nutrients, and photosynthetic capacity of plants. Therefore, it varies in different types of ecosystems. The annual net primary productivity of the whole biosphere is approximately 170 billion ton dry weight of organic matter. Of this, despite occupying 70% of the surface, the productivity of ocean are only 55 billion ton due to lack of sunlight and solar energy. Decomposition. You may have heard of the earthworm being referred to as the farmer's friend. This is so because they help in the breakdown of complex organic matter as well as in loosening the soil. Similarly, decomposers break down complex organic matter into inorganic substances like carbon dioxide, water, and nutrients, and the process is called decomposition. Dead plants remains such as leaves, bark, flowers, and dead remains of animals, including fecal matter, constitute detritus, which is the raw material for decomposition. The important steps in the process of decomposition are fragmentation, leaching, catabolism, humification, and mineralization. Detritivores, example earthworm, break down detritus into smaller particles. This process is called fragmentation. By the process of leaching, Water soluble inorganic nutrients go down into the soil horizon and get precipitated as unavailable salts. Bacterial and fungal enzymes degrade detritus into simpler inorganic substances. This process is called catabolism. It is important to note that all the above steps in decomposition operate simultaneously on the detritus. Humification and mineralization occur during decomposition in the soil. Humification leads to accumulation of a dark colored amorphous substance called humus that is highly resistant to microbial action and undergoes decomposition at an extremely slow rate. Being colloidal in nature, it serves as the reservoir of nutrients. The humus is further degraded by some microbes and release of inorganic nutrients occur by the process known as mineralization. Decomposition is largely an oxygen requiring process. The rate of decomposition is controlled by chemical composition of detritus and climatic factors. In a particular climatic condition, decomposition rate is slower if detritus is rich in lignin and chitin, and quicker if detritus is rich in nitrogen and water soluble substances like sugars. Temperature and soil moisture are the most important climatic factors that regulate decomposition through their effects on the activities of soil microbes. Warm and moist environment favor decomposition, whereas low temperature and anaerobiosis inhibit decomposition, resulting in build-up of organic materials. Energy flow. Except for the deep sea hydrothermal ecosystem, sun is the only source of energy for all ecosystems on earth. Of the incident solar radiation, less than 50% of it is photosynthetically active radiation. We know that plants and photosynthetic bacteria fix sun's radiant energy to make food from simple inorganic materials. Plants capture only 2 to 10% of the photosynthetically active radiation, and this small amount of energy sustains the entire living world. So, it is very important to know how the solar energy captured by plants flows through different organisms of an ecosystem. All organisms are dependent for their food on producers, either directly or indirectly. So, you find unidirectional flow of energy from the sun to producers and then to consumers. Further, ecosystems are not exempt from the second law of thermodynamics. They need a constant supply of energy to synthesize the molecules they require to counteract the universal tendency toward increasing disorderliness. The green plant in the ecosystem are called producers. In a terrestrial ecosystem, major producers are herbaceous and woody plants. Likewise, producers in an aquatic ecosystem are various species like phytoplankton, algae, and higher plants. You have read about the food chains and webs that exist in nature. Starting from the plants or producers, food chains or rather webs are formed such that an animal feeds on a plant or on another animal and in turn is food for the another. The chain or web is formed because of this interdependency. No energy that is trapped into an organism remains in it forever. The energy trapped by the producer hence is either passed to the consumer or the organism dies. Death of an organism is the beginning of the detritus food chain. All animals depend on plants directly or indirectly for their food needs. They are hence called consumers and also heterotrophs. If they feed on the producers, the plants, they are called primary consumers. And if the animals eat other animals which in turn eat the plants or their produce, they are called secondary consumers. Likewise, you could have tertiary consumers too. Obviously, the primary consumers will be herbivores. Some common herbivores are insects, birds, and mammals in terrestrial ecosystem and mollusks in aquatic ecosystem. The consumers that feed on these herbivores are carnivores, or more correctly, primary carnivores, though secondary consumers. Those animals that depend on the primary carnivores for food are labeled as secondary carnivores. A simple grazing food chain GFC is depicted below. Grass is producer, which transfers its energy to goat, which is primary consumer, which again transfers its energy to man, which is secondary consumer. The detritus food chain begins with dead organic matter. It is made up of decomposers, which are heterotrophic organisms, mainly fungi and bacteria. They meet their energy and nutrient requirements by degrading dead organic matter or detritus. They are also known as saprotrophs. Decomposers secrete digestive enzymes that break down dead and waste materials into simple inorganic materials, which are subsequently absorbed by them. In an aquatic ecosystem, grazing food chain is a major conduit for energy flow. As against this, in a terrestrial ecosystem, a much larger fraction of energy flows through the detritus food chain than through the GFC. Detritus food chain may be connected with the grazing food chain at some levels. Some of the organisms of detritus food chain are prey to the grazing food chain animals, and in a natural ecosystem, some animals like cockroaches, crows, etc. are omnivores. These natural interconnection of food chains make it a food web. Organisms occupy a place in the natural surroundings or in a community according to their feeding relationships with other organisms. Based on the source of their nutrition or food, organisms occupy a specific place in the food chain that is known as their trophic level. Producers belong to the first trophic level, herbivorous primary consumer to the second, and carnivores secondary consumer to the third. The important point to note that the amount of energy decreases at successive trophic levels. When any organism dies, it is converted to detritus or dead biomass that serves as an energy source for decomposers. Organisms at each trophic level depend on those at the lower trophic level for their energy demands. Each trophic level has a certain mass of living material at a particular time called as the standing crop. The standing crop is measured as the mass of living organisms, biomass, or the number in a unit area. The biomass of a species is expressed in terms of a fresh or dry weight. Measurements of biomass in terms of dry weight is more accurate. The number of trophic levels in the grazing food chain is restricted as the transfer of energy follows 10% law. Only 10% of the energy is transferred to each trophic level from the lower trophic level. In nature, it is possible to have so many levels: producer, herbivore, primary carnivore, secondary carnivore in the grazing food chain. Ecological pyramids. You must be familiar with the shape of a pyramid. The base of a pyramid is broad and it narrows towards the apex. One gets a similar shape whether you express the food or energy relationships between organisms at different trophic level. This relationship is expressed in terms of number, biomass, or energy. The base of each pyramid represents the producers or the first trophic level, while the apex represents tertiary or top level consumer. The three ecological pyramids that are usually studied are pyramid of number, pyramid of biomass, and pyramid of energy. Any calculations of energy content, biomass, or numbers has to include all organisms at that trophic level. No generalization we make will be true if we take only a few individuals at any trophic level into account. Also, a given organism may occupy more than one trophic level simultaneously. One must remember that the trophic level represents a functional level, not a species as such. A given species may occupy more than one trophic level in the same ecosystem at the same time. For example, a sparrow is a primary consumer when it eats seeds, fruits, peas, and a secondary consumer when it eats insects and worms. In most ecosystems, all the pyramids of number, of energy, and biomass are upright. That is, producers are more in number and biomass than the herbivores, and herbivores are more in number and biomass than the carnivores. Also, energy at a lower trophic level is always more than that a higher trophic level. There are exceptions to this generalization. If you were to count the number of insects feeding on a big tree, what kind of pyramid would you get? Now, add an estimate of the number of small birds depending on the insects, as also the number of larger bird eating the smaller. Draw the shape of pyramid you get. The pyramid of biomass in sea is generally inverted. The biomass of fishes far exceeds that of phytoplankton. Pyramid of energy is always upright, can never be inverted, because when energy flows from one particular level to next, some energy is always lost as heat at each step. Each bar in the energy pyramid indicates the amount of energy present at each trophic level in a given time or annually per unit area. However, there are certain limitations of ecological pyramids, such as it does not take account the species belonging to two or more trophic levels. It assumes a simple food chain, something that almost never exists in nature. It does not accommodate a food web. Moreover, saprophytes are not given any place in ecological pyramids, even though they play a vital role in the ecosystem.